Hello and welcome again to our brand new program, Women to Women. And this evening I am graciously co-hosting with PJ Degross, who has a passion, like all of the women of Northern Nevada that I interview. And we have a program here that is featuring women who are definitely making a difference in Northern Nevada. They are givers, they are servers, they are not takers. And they have people on their hearts and in their minds all the time, but in many different ways. So it's a pleasure to welcome you, PJ.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for coming. PJ, the audience, the viewing audience, knows that I like to throw out kind of a puzzle to them from time to time to see if they can guess from the clues that are given during the first half of the program as to what your passion might be.
Okay.
But I'm not going to reveal it during the first half.
Right.
We're going to keep them guessing, okay?
Fine.
PJ, those initials, what do they stand for?
They actually stand for Phyllis Joan.
Now, is that a Western concept where you have initials? I'm not a Westerner by birth. I'm a Midwesterner.
No, actually, many years ago, I was in the export business. Okay. I worked in the export business, and we did business with Venezuela, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, all of these places, and Nigeria. And they didn't like dealing with women very much. And back then, we didn't have the communications that we have now, so everything was either telex or telephone, or mostly letters. So I started signing all of my letters with PJ so they wouldn't know that I was a woman, and it just kind of stuck.
When did they discover that
when
you
they
were
came into the office, and they walked right past me, you know, and said, we're here to see PJ, and I went like that, and they said, no. In fact, one of the princes of Abu Dhabi walked right by me, and when I told him, I'm PJ, and he goes, no, you're not. And he says, well, I want to talk to your boss. And I said, okay. So that's how I got the name PJ.
I like it. I like it very much. But it's also an indication of how far women have come since the 60s, since the 50s, even since the beginning of the 70s. And it's a challenge all the time to be a woman out there. And we love men, but we also love being women.
Absolutely.
And the gifts that we have been given are there to be developed and be used to help others in so many different ways.
Right.
Well, PJ, let me ask you this then. Did you come from Nevada originally?
No, I'm a Brooklyn girl.
Brooklyn, New York. And
Brooklyn, New York. When I was 3 years old, my father felt that it was not a good place to raise little girls living right in Brooklyn, so we moved to Miami, Florida. And I lived there for most of my life, went to school there.
Okay.
Moved back to New York for a while, lived in Long Island. Always wanted to be a Long Island housewife. And from there moved on to Connecticut and then ended up back in Florida.
And there's one clue. The ability to travel, the ability to adjust to different environments within the same culture, okay? That's a very important experience to have and be able to take a positive outlook and work with a new environment that you're in, because it's not always an easy thing, an easy task, especially for a child if you're leaving friendships behind.
Right.
And as you get into school and those friendships deepen,
exactly.
There's a tough part of that.
And when my husband and I moved, we lived in the Florida Keys, actually, which is almost furthest south that you can get in the United States to almost the furthest northwest. And people said, how can you leave a place that you've grown your whole life? Aren't you going to be lonely? And how are you going to handle it? And I said, well, I have my husband. He's my best friend. We can go anywhere. And he always teases me. He says, he always says, you're the introvert. But it didn't take very long for us to get to Carson City and find out what a great place this is. And the people are amazing. And it was kind of, when you go somewhere and you feel like, gosh, I should have been here my whole life.
It can give that sense of feeling, I think, particularly here in the northern regions of Nevada. I don't know because I don't live in the southern portion of the state, but I am very pleased and delighted, like you, to have found wonderful friends and people who accept the differences that you bring in and with such an open mind.
Absolutely. I was totally blown away when I went to grocery shopping and walked in there, I was buying the store because we were filling up a house. And when I went back the next time, the owner, Ron, who passed away unfortunately, Rayleigh's, knew my name when I came in. When you live in Miami, when you live in South Florida, it's so big and so bustling.
Nobody knows
who you are unless you've committed a crime or done something like that. And I just found that with everyone. everyone is like that here.
Well, let me ask you, in terms of your family life, were you an only child?
No.
So you grew up with siblings?
I was one of three.
All
I
right.
was the middle child. It's all true what they say about middle children. You're not the oldest and you're not the baby. So I became very independent through being a middle child.
I'm a middle child too, and I think there's always that consideration. You look towards your older brother or sister in many regards as a role model, and your parents remind you when you should follow them and when you shouldn't, okay? And then you
Right.
also have a protective feeling towards that little one who's younger than you.
Right, exactly.
And I think it develops a sense of responsibility toward that little one, and also a sense of direction and emulation. You want to do the best if you see an older brother or sister doing something that really gains the praise of parents or someone else. That must be a good thing to do.
And we were three totally different. My father used to always say I have three of a kind, meaning three girls. But we were so different. We looked different. We acted different. To this day, I lost my older sister in 2000 from pancreatic cancer. And my younger sister still lives in Florida. It's interesting because even though we are all so different, there is that thread, that familial thread that goes through all of us that makes us very much alike, but we are very different.
So can I take it that you came from a very strong family?
Absolutely.
Emotionally for one another?
Yes.
So you have experienced grief and the loss of a dear family member.
It's interesting because I came from the kind of a family, Jewish family from Brooklyn. My father was very hardworking, owned his own business. My mother was very involved in charities and working and doing all kinds of public service and things like that. So we kind of grew up that way. But everyone came to our house. It was like Sunday was our house time. We did the whole breakfast thing, and holidays were at my house. And then within a period of 10 years, I lost my mother, my father, all of my grandparents, and 3 or 4 aunts and uncles. So going from being a very tight-knit family,
Yes.
I went from having just my sisters and a lot of the family we had was in New York, and we weren't really that close with them.
Yes.
So that was a really interesting time in my life, because even though I was the middle child, I was the strongest child. Of course, my other sisters would argue about that. But
Well, and I think I lived in New York for 30 years, in Manhattan and outside, just upstate, about an hour away from the center of the city. So I understand when you say Jewish families, because they are very strongly united for one another. And there is a traditional sense of determination, of energy that they expend in helping others.
absolutely.
And in charity work, there's very few that equal them in the time and effort and sometimes finances that they give to other people.
Absolutely. And from the time I was a little girl, I can't tell you how many envelopes I've licked, how many flyers I put out, how many fundraisers I've been to. My mother was involved in everything, and my father worked a lot of hours. He was involved to a certain point, but my mom was the one that, she won quite a few awards. She was actually the national chairwoman for United Cerebral Palsy in Miami.
Who was a disciplinarian in your family? Was it your father, your mother? Did they share it? Could you tell as a child?
This is how it was. Wait till your father comes home. And then my father would come home and say, let your mother handle it. So even we had great values and we had a lot of discipline. But when my mother or my father would tell us something, that was pretty much it.
Okay. Do you sense that there is a difference today in families? You work with people, and we're about to divulge your passion, okay? And I know that when you interview, when you mix with the military, there is a strong sense within you that says, is this an intact family? Is this a family that is completely dysfunctional because of war, because of separation of parents, because of separation of a father or perhaps a mother? I know during the Persian Gulf War, when I was working on a military base as a teacher, just outside of West Point, New York, I understood that there were children who were looking for some kind of framework. Both parents Quite often the father was a jet fighter pilot, and he was flying long hours and gone months before they ever saw him. And the mother was also in a military situation.
Right.
So they were living with grandparents, and when they came to school, they expected and hoped that their teachers would have a sense of stability and framework around them. And of course, some of those children, as we know, are going to become orphans.
Right.
And again, depending upon the strength of the extended family, was a point where they were going to be able to handle it, work their way through it, or just fall apart. It was really a very trying time. And that continues with military families today. And that's going to bring us to a point in our program here and with you in the interview that I'm hoping our viewing audience is sensing that as a woman of heart and a woman that's used to giving and licking many envelopes, okay?
Oh, yeah, many.
And that your ability to move around, and now you're finally here in Carson City, and you're happy here in Carson City, you're happy in the Dayton area, in northern Nevada area. Do you believe that what you're doing, and we're about to reveal that, is making a significant difference, not only for northern Nevada, but for the country as well? Are you bringing to our attention something that has been missing that we really need to have and be well informed of?
Many things. Many things. It's like a diamond. There's so many facets. There's so many areas that people don't even think of. They look at the situation like this, or they look at a situation from what they see on the news or on television. But it's like an onion. When you start peeling it away and you start looking at the different things that go on, it's I'd say probably more like a kaleidoscope than a diamond, because there's so many facets to it.
Are you saying to me, PJ, that one person can make a difference in many people's lives?
I would say that when I go out and speak to different groups, especially children, I went to Girl State and talked to hundreds of girls who were chosen, because of their academic ability and their desire to go into politics and service and all that. And the one thing I would leave them with was, one person can make a huge difference if that one person has a desire, a love, the willingness to work hard, the willingness to forge through areas where sometimes maybe you haven't gone before, or they haven't thought of that type of a situation or a way to handle something. When you come up with a mission, and I call it a mission, that came to me, I didn't actually go to it, then you have to be willing to do the work. And you can make a difference. And I can tell you, I truly believe that I have made a difference in not hundreds, but thousands of lives. I just haven't added them all up yet.
Well, I'm just dying to let the audience know what it is that you do. Maybe I have one more question I'd like to ask before we get to that point. Do you see in our high schools, in our elementary schools, amongst young women, do you see leadership that is absolutely there and can be and will be developed, or do you see an apathy towards leadership?
I'd have to say that my experience, and I've spoken in quite a few schools, from the little ones, the first, second graders, all the way up to high school and on some college. I am very encouraged by the women that I have met, the young women, absolutely encouraged, because, you hear about on television all the bad things that young kids are doing, but you don't hear about the wonderful things. And I've been so fortunate to work with some really, really amazing leaders. The youngest person that I dealt with in my mission was 13 years old.
And we're going to hold that right there, how a 13-year-old affected you. And I would love to ask you when we come back, PJ, when did the light bulb go on in your mind that, you know what, this is what I'm supposed to be doing? How old were you and where did it happen? And we'll be right back.
Okay.
Thank you.
This episode of Women to Women is brought to you by Carpin Nevada LLC and Villa Basque Deli and Cafe.
Are you looking for a healthier lifestyle? A more nutritious diet? Do you care about quality? If your answer is yes, or if you are just curious, come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.
Hello and welcome back again to Women to Women. It's a pleasure to have PJ Gross Degross with me, and we have been talking about her passion, but we haven't revealed it yet. So PJ is one of those women who is definitely making a difference in Northern Nevada, and that's the whole purpose of our program, is to interview individuals who definitely do make differences where they live, not just for their families and their communities, but for entire regions. So it's a pleasure, and I'm excited to get back because I've asked PJ two significant questions. When did that light bulb go on in her brain that, aha, this is what I'm cut out to do? She's got lots of great travel experience behind her. She is married to a Cuban, like I am, okay?
No, ex-husband.
Oh, excuse me,
No,
ex-husband.
this time I have an Italian.
Okay, but it's an animated. She has had the best of both worlds in so many ways and has decided to give back to that world that has been so generous to her. So, PJ, when that light bulb went on, how old were you and where were you? Do you remember?
How old was I? It was, I was, gosh, you asked me that question. I have to think about it.
Probably in your 40s?
I've been doing it 5 years now.
Okay.
And I was about 59 or 60 at the time. No, more than that, 64. I'm 69 now.
And I'm 69. And you know, sometimes it takes a marination, space and time. It takes marinating of various ingredients and circumstances to bring us to that awareness.
Right.
And did it happen here in Nevada?
Yes, you know, when I first came out here, I was involved with the MS Foundation as walk chairman for Carson City, and did that for a couple years. In, I believe it was 2004, I called around and said, is there a salutes our Memorial Day, you know, honor our troops kind of thing going on at the legislature anywhere? And they said no. And I said, well, how can that be? This is Capitol. So I went home and I told my husband, and he goes, well, just do one. And knowing me the way he does, that was like a challenge. So in 3 weeks, we put together a big event at the legislature. And I believe it was Fast Signs, or one of the sign companies, donated 2 big signs that says, we support our troops. And we had people sign them, and it was an amazing thing. But now I was left with 2 banners and no soldiers. I didn't know what to do with them.
And lots of signatures.
And thousands and thousands, because we did it at the rendezvous. It was just an amazing thing. So, so of course, like where else would anyone go looking for anything? I went on the internet and I started searching military blogs. And I found one, and he got the banners for me and started circulating them around. So I adopted him and started sending cards and letters and goodie boxes, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first time I ever had that experience. He sent me an email about 6 months before he was coming home and said that a soldier had been critically wounded in Iraq, what I call him. And see if I could do anything. So his name was Norris Galatas. He's the inspiration for my organization.
Which is?
Which is webofsupport.com. And I called him up and said, can I help you? And he said, no, I'll be fine. And in his Mississippi accent, he said, but you can do me a favor and take care of my guys. And I said, okay. And he gave me the contact information. And I emailed this major and said, I'm going to adopt your unit. And he wrote me back and he said, there's 500 of us. Are you sure you want to do this? And I gave a word to a wounded soldier. And I said,
you did.
I said, I'll tell you what, can I do this in increments of like 125? Because I can capture that in my mind, but 500 seemed, you know, completely out of my realm. And so I started calling all my friends from high school, from college, from everywhere, and can you adopt a soldier? What does that mean? I don't know. Just send them stuff. So it just took off like crazy. And then when my original soldier that I had came home, he said, you need a website and you need to get more sophisticated, because by then I had like 800 soldiers I was adopting, writing it on paper and all this kind of stuff. So that's when, in 2005, Web of Support really took its flight. And since then, Web of Support has adopted every individual soldier of every National Guard unit deployed since 2006.
When you say every National Guard unit, are you talking about Nevada, or you're talking about the entire nation?
Well, I've adopted every individual soldier of every unit. There's 12 or 13. I have 2 more over there. I have 1 over there now. 1 came home last night. I have another one leaving soon. But no, that's not just the only ones. I've had the 101st Airborne from Fort Campbell, 82nd Airborne, supported Marines. I say soldiers because back then I didn't know, but you call a Marine a soldier. It's not very pretty. But no, so any soldier that contacts me, or any Marine or anyone on the internet, I adopt them.
PJ, I know from personal experience that adopting or paying attention or making that connection to one of our military personnel really touches so many hearts. When we had a business back in Ohio, we would send our Mama Ines coffee to Iraq, not knowing who was drinking it,
Right.
what battalion, what Air Force pilot was having it for breakfast in the morning. But one day, about 2 years after we had started that, in walked this military man dressed in uniform with a large flag-encased piece of military equipment and a big picture that had his fighter plane on it. And he walked in and presented it to my husband in person. He was back in his office, and Jose was dumbfounded and thrilled that that Air Force personnel would have taken the time to do that. He said, have you any idea how many of us had a cup of coffee every morning before we got into that space where we fly? And the connection had been made.
Right.
My country cares. People care back there. And those signatures had to have spoken to you loudly on those 2 banners, that here is a nation, here are people that absolutely want to know how you're doing. Where are you?
And it's even a lot more than that. When I adopt a soldier, they become mine forever. And Mother's Day is just incredible, and Christmas and the holidays. 2 years ago, I started the first Military Wives Club because I had so many wives calling me, and I took one to lunch, and then another one said, can I go? And now we have like 25, almost 30 women, and they're all mentoring each other, because no one knows what it's like to be a military wife and have a husband deployed and be mother, father, everything, unless someone has walked in those same shoes.
That's right.
But even, I tell people, when you want to adopt a soldier, Marine, Airman, it's not about what you send them. It's about anchoring them to home. It's about anchoring them to the things that they remember and the things that make them feel warm and fuzzy. And I got an email, a letter actually, when I first started this. You asked me when that light bulb went off. I mean, I was doing this and loving it, but when I got, and this was in the beginning, I got this letter, and he said, Dear PJ, I've been deployed now for 9 months, and every month my buddies get a box, and they share what they have with me. But today I got my own box with my name on it. And he said, I can't even explain to you. I know, it's emotional. Every time I think about this, he said, I can't tell you what it meant to me to get a box of my own. And when that happened, it's an emotional thing. I know, that was my aha moment, because I had the same reaction that you're having right now. It was like, oh my God, this is more. This is more than sending cookies and candy and things like that. These are real people. And a lot of what people don't know is there are a lot of soldiers that aren't supported by their families. And they're virtually alone in their mission in something that they believe in. And so and even with the soldiers that have families,
Yes.
you know, you expect your mother and father to send you a box, right?
I would hope so.
You would hope so. You expect that. But when an American patriot adopts you, and I can tell you, the relationships that have been formed. I have a woman who's a widow. When her husband died, she said she thought her life was over. She felt like she lost her identity. And she heard about Web of Support, and I gave her a soldier. They have become so close that they visit, they spend time together. He calls her mom.
Very special.
And this isn't just one story. I mean, I have 375 members around the United States. And my members become so invested in their soldiers.
Absolutely.
They know their families, they know their children. So I mean, you know, and I tell everyone, this is not a political thing. Soldiers are not political. They're doing their job, you know?
You have a website. Can you repeat that website?
Yes.
So that we can put it on the bottom of our screen?
Thank you.
And
It's
people who are
Web of Support, webofsupport.com. And there's an interactive section where someone can go in and sign up. And when they sign up, they will get the name of a soldier, Marine, whatever I have at the time. They will get an email address. Sometimes they get a picture.
Okay.
Sometimes the families want to be involved, so you might be able to be hooked up with the wife. I can tell you that it has been the most beautiful experience in my life. My world has blown up so much, my friendships and the people that I know. I tell people, adopt a soldier. It will make your heart smile every day.
I can believe that. I can certainly believe that. And there's a feeling that when, such as you, PJ, who you're a giver, you have a heart. You found where the heart is leading you.
Right.
And it's confirmed inside of you that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's
Absolutely.
a wonderful thing. I actually need a Kleenex, and I don't have one on site right now.
You know what I say? If you're doing the right thing, if you're on a mission that is the right thing for you,
Yes.
then it will flow like the river. It will be easy. If you're doing something and it's not, and you find resistance the whole way along, constantly,
Yes.
then maybe it's time to rethink the direction that you're going in.
Right, and I think that as we bring this program to a close, it's important for our listeners to understand that patience and time and listening very well to those people that are interacting with you, because whether we know it or not at the time, they can be helping to guide us.
Right.
And you can look back on your experiences with people that you have met during your lifetime that have helped lead you, guide you to this moment here in Nevada, where 5 years ago you realized. And I would say that all of those signatures on those banners had a very important reason for being there.
I can tell you that Northern Nevadans are the most kind-hearted, generous. I've done a lot of fundraisers. I do a lot of fundraisers. I have never been let down. Thank you, Lord. The people in this area
Yes.
are unbelievably generous and kind-hearted.
Well, I want to thank you so much,
Thank
PJ, for
you.
coming in and sharing this wonderfully personal story. And I want it to serve as an act of encouragement for all listeners or all viewers out there to realize that don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the circumstances or the events in your life. They're there and they're helping to form you. And we hope that this program, Women to Women, is an encouragement in that direction for everyone who's viewing. So we thank you. We look forward to seeing you next week with a brand new guest. And again, the best of everything, PJ.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.